Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's live webinar on mental fitness. Great seeing you tune in from around the world, and I hope everyone's well and excited about today's topic and speaker. I know I am. It's going to be a great webinar, so let's move ahead. The purpose, as you know, of these webinars is to educate, inspire, and empower global leaders like you to help modernize boards and ultimately make boards more efficient. So we thank you for being part of this journey. Our expert speakers bring a wide range of current leadership and board-related topics to the table. Shortly, you will have the privilege to spend some time with mental fitness expert David Beale, and he'll reveal the mystery around the 10 saboteurs we face both in and out of the boardroom. My name is Red, event manager for Shaparency and today's webinar moderator. Before we begin, let me introduce you to our webinar host, Shaparency. Shaparency is a user-friendly, cost-effective digital platform, and it has all the features your board needs to thrive, including modern digital security, an ever-growing series of board effectiveness measurement tools, and board education partners. So I don't know if you know, but less than 15% of companies globally use any type of board technology today. So our founder, Ben, is on a mission to change that and make an impact in the board industry, modernize boards and governance operations and make them more efficient and less boring, as he would say. 3 quick notes before we begin. Write your questions in the Q&A section, and you can do that as you go so you don't forget your question. Our goal is to answer all questions at the close of the presentation, but if for some reason we run out of time, we will follow up with you after the webinar. This webinar is also being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording and David's presentation deck within the next few days. And all certification holders of the globally recognized International Board Director Competency Designation, IBDC.D certificate, will also receive 1 CPE credit for attending the webinar. Now, I'd like to present today's webinar speaker, David Beale. David Beale has been the founder and CEO of several companies with extensive experience in fast-growing multi-location B2B service companies, for-profit education, as well as leading and integrating acquisitions. David is the founder and owner of Inside Out Leadership Group, where he expanded the 18-year consulting practice to add executive whole life coaching, while it enables CEOs to achieve higher levels of professional and personal performance. And that is together with wellness and fulfillment along the way. David has been a member of Young Presidents Organization and active in YPO forums over 24 years. He founded his YPO qualifying business in 1986 and grew it profitably from startup to over 600 million in annual global revenue. David lives on Long Island in New York and with his wife Stephanie, and enjoys time with 3 young adult stepchildren. David also enjoys golfing, kayaking, and biking. Here is David Beale and mental fitness and the saboteurs of boardroom success. Welcome, David, to our virtual stage.
Thank you, Red. Really glad to be here. In fact, I'm very grateful to be here because I really resonate with the mission of Shaparency and the audience quite a bit. In fact, you know, after I had spent a lot of my time building a handful of different companies and having some exits, I got very involved in sitting on some boards and making investments, doing consulting, and I did that for quite a while. And it wasn't that long ago, early, like in pre-COVID, in 2019, I was on a YPO forum retreat, and I was kind of grappling with the what I was going to do with the last 1/3 of my life, that big question, depending on your age. And I was actually feeling like some of the time that I was spending on boards at least the boards that I was on, were, you know, far too focused on just numbers, not really involved enough in the culture and in the execution aspects of the business, and I was losing a little bit of the energy that I had gotten from that over the years. And so, long story short, I pivoted just over the last few years into formal coaching, and stumbled into the idea of mental fitness as a platform or a framework that can be one of many tools to use in terms of development and growth. And I found myself, you know, feeling inspired and juiced, you know, all the time by working with folks just like you out there, and you know, feeling energetic because I was having a real impact every time I hung up the phone with a client CEO or working with the senior team. And so I'm really grateful to be here to share this stuff with you. It's had a huge impact for me. I've watched it have a huge impact on myself and the leaders that I happen to work with, including the boards that they're on. So let's just jump right into it. What is the definition of mental fitness? Let's just start there. You know, I like to think of mental fitness in terms of our capacity to respond to life's challenges in a positive rather than a negative mindset. I'll say it again. Responding to life's challenges in a positive rather than a negative mindset. And the impact on that is on three key areas that I know will change the way that you move through work and through life. It has a huge impact on peak performance relative to your own potential. Big impact on peace of mind and wellness, what some people call happiness, and a really big impact on having healthy relationships. So the mental fitness really is a really cool analogy, and I like the analogy because it focuses, like, if you think of mental fitness in terms of physical fitness, if you had to scale a big hill or a mountain and you were not physically fit, you'd get tired out and you may not even make it to the top. With mental fitness, it's very much the same thing. It's building your capability, building up your ability to tackle big challenges. It's really born from the work that Shahzad Shamin, a fellow IPOer and a mentor and good friend of mine, created through some foundational research that he did when he wrote the book on positive intelligence. So positive intelligence, what we call PQ, is all of the research work that went into what we call mental fitness training today. And it's really science-based, it's research-based, and that's what I love about it. It's based on the latest synthesis in neuroscience, behavioral sciences, positive psychology, and performance science. And Shahzad has kind of weaved all these things together into a program that focuses on, and this research initially involved about 500,000 people. Today, it's well over 1 million. And the people involved in this research span from everyday people to elite athletes, Stanford students, hundreds of YPOers and senior executives all around the globe. The book that he wrote is actually I think it's in 20 different languages. So this is a global phenomenon, and it's based on global research. One of the key things that positive intelligence research brings to the synthesis of all these other sciences is using factor analysis, which is a really cool thing, and a thing I love about the program. Shahzad has spent quite a bit of time on factor analysis to get to the root cause and the root benefits of why we don't perform at our best, and the way that we can kind of shift into a mindset or activating another part of our brain to optimize our potential for success. The results of factor analysis are radical simplification in the approach to working on mental fitness. So from Shahzad's work and from all this factor analysis, he's identified that there's only 3 core muscles that are at the root of mental fitness. They are what he calls and what we call the saboteur interceptor muscle, our sage muscle, and our ability to have self-command. So from all that work, from all that factor analysis, we've identified 10 saboteurs that get in the way of our success, or at least get in the way of our full potential and peak performance and happiness. Not 9 saboteurs, not 11 saboteurs, it's really just 10 saboteurs. And 5 sage powers, what we call sage powers, that live in a different part of our brain, that contribute to us being at our best. So I'd like to start with, and I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity digging around to look at the website or any of the assessments of the material there. But the saboteur, of the 10 saboteurs, the universal saboteur is the judge. The judge is universal, it's in every human being, it's a part of the survival part of our brain. And the judge shows up in 3 different ways in all of us in life. It shows up in self-judgment, judging others, and judging circumstances. And when the judge is involved, it kind of distracts your mind and feeds off of all of the negative emotions associated with these saboteurs. In addition to what the judge does and how the judge impacts us, we have what we call 9 accomplished saboteurs. And now these saboteurs, show up in different ways in our lives. They show up in different strengths. All humans tend to have all of them, but they tend to show up in different ways in our personal lives and also in our professional lives. I have a slide here that I wanted to share with you, and it's an actual. We work with doing what we call a saboteur assessment. This is an assessment of an actual client of mine, a CFO of a Fortune 50 company, not named James. But you can see through the how the assessment kind of you take the assessment and this kind of gives you an idea of the strength that these saboteurs are affecting James in his life. The controller saboteur and the avoider saboteur and the hypervigilant are the ones that are most impactful. And it's interesting because the controller saboteur is one that can be really destructive. It's one that comes out and you're trying to control circumstances, you're trying to control things. You're stepping up and kind of being more of the boss. But then when things aren't going your way and you're finding yourself under pressure or stress, the avoider saboteur kind of would kick in and you kind of clam up and you hold back and stop participating. So all these saboteurs work together in very destructive ways. So these saboteurs, one of the things I wanted to talk about is how these saboteurs live in very different regions of our brain. And the saboteurs, for the sticklers in the room, I like to refer to it as a left and a right brain phenomenon. But the left side of our brain, or the brainstem and limbic system, is where all of our survival instincts lay. And it's kind of the default neural pathway that all of us as human beings operate from. And so we tend to react, and we tend to not give space to thought and to intention, and that's one of the reasons why we're held back. The sage lives in the right side of our brain, more of the what I like to call the creative side of our brain. And the sage in the saboteurs, they motivate us through negative emotions like fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, and insecurity, where the sage in us motivates us through the positive emotions of empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. And so these are very different things. Some of us will operate from a place of being hijacked by our saboteurs, and it might generate some success for us, but it's not going to allow any of us to reach our full potential. And it's certainly not going to give us what I like to call happiness or a feeling of well-being. And in fact, it saps us of our energy, and so where the antidote to that is with the sage. The sage will generate our highest success, our best performance, sustained happiness and well-being, and kind of like what I like to consider flow and high energy. I'd like to take a moment and tell you a little bit about how I've experienced the differences in some of the teams and the boards that I've worked with just recently as a result of some of the stuff going on with COVID. I was involved with a couple of different boards. In my specialties in the flexible workplace industry and education. So as you might imagine, those businesses were really fully disrupted. And I watched two different boards that I was involved with operate in very different ways. One of the boards was not really well trained in mental fitness, and while the board had all kinds of highly successful and very intelligent people, we started to see as things got difficult, as businesses were literally shut down, a real breakdown in the way the board was able to perform. I saw a downward spiral in trust as people kind of operated from their default mode of their saboteurs. I saw conflict. People stopped listening. People started worrying more about being right than doing the right thing for the company in times of difficulty. There were different interests involved on the board, and you started to see things, people moving into their corners and things not working as smoothly as we would have hoped. And predictably, the end result of that was that this board, this company, after about a year of living with COVID, emerged out of that crisis just a shell of itself. And almost as important, one of the things that I found really hard to watch was the well-being of all the people involved in the leadership team and on those boards. Literally, some people being so unwell that they were hospitalized. So I've seen firsthand the difference, because there was another company in the same industry And this company had done a lot of work in mental fitness and embraced some of the concepts and reacted in a completely different way. In fact, I don't think reactive is even the right word. You know, people became very intentional. They created space. They were able to bring their expertise to the discussion without taking positions. People felt heard. Even though people had different ownership interests and different potential outcomes from what happened with the business, people started showing up as their best selves. You know, they remained creative, they remained empathetic, they remained engaged, and you know, what I saw was high energy throughout the entire crisis. And this particular company emerged from that with some foundational changes to the business that actually allowed them to emerge stronger, where the other company, you know, barely looked like a shell of itself. So I've seen this stuff work in some of the worst circumstances, and you know, I'm inspired by how some of those leaders were able to come out of it. At the root of all saboteurs, at the root of at the root of all of our getting hijacked are negative emotions. And you know, I'm often asked, aren't negative emotions good for me? And you know, I think, you know, I like to make the analogy of negative emotions and pain, you know, because yes, negative emotions are good for us. Negative emotions are important, just as pain is important. But you know, if you're going to put your hand on a hot stove, it's only important for a split second, so that you remove your hand, right? It's got nothing to do with, otherwise you're going to burn your hand to the bone. Negative emotions are very similar. When you feel negative emotions and you use negative emotions to let you indicate, and as an indicator that you're being hijacked by a saboteur, that's the use. Staying in negative emotions, staying hijacked by your saboteurs is the way that we react in an instinctual way, rather than a way that involves choice and our best selves. So let me talk more. So I've covered a little bit about intercepting the saboteur, which is one primary muscle. The other of the three key muscles in mental fitness is building the muscle of the sage. And so the sage, you know, is it's not based on fear. It's not based on negative emotions. That right side of our brain, where the sage lives and where our essence is where all positive emotions, peace, calm, clear-headed, action, creativity, and being able to think about things in terms of purpose. That's where the sage is. That's where our sage muscle is. And one of the other key elements of engaging the sage, and one that I've been using, I think, as long as I can remember, I didn't have the language of calling it the sage perspective. But I know for me in my life and in dealing with things both in business and in life, having the sage perspective, or the idea that any challenge, any challenge or outcome can be turned into a gift or opportunity, has been key for me. And it's kind of it's foundational to the work that we do in mental fitness. It's foundational to building that sage perspective. It's literally having that idea that any challenge, anything that we face can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And the way that we do that, and this kind of goes into the third muscle, is what we call PQ reps. So what is a PQ rep? A PQ rep is as little as 10 seconds focusing on a sensation. It can be either, it can be any one of our senses. It could be touch, it could be sight, it could be hearing, it could be our breath. But the idea is to interrupt the pattern of the saboteur, to create space and pause, and in as little as 10 seconds, doing a myriad of different PQ reps that are available to us, you create that space to make the shift in terms of brain activation from being hijacked by your saboteur into the right side of your brain, where all your sage and your sage powers live. And so we call that PQ reps. The thing that I love about the work that Shahzad has done with positive intelligence and mental fitness is the simplicity of the operating system, the simplicity of the framework, and it's really this easy. When you're feeling negative emotions, that's the symbol, that's the sign that you're being hijacked by one of your saboteurs. So you stop. You do PQ reps to quiet your saboteur mind and make that shift into sage. You assume the sage perspective that any challenge or any quote unquote problem can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And then you make that opportunity happen by engaging all the sage powers, all 5 sage powers, like empathy, curiosity, creativity, and taking calm, clear-headed, fierce action towards whatever it is that you need to tackle. So the question that I get asked a lot is it really that easy to just shift from saboteur to sage response, even in tough challenges? And the idea is that all these negative emotions, all these challenges, when they're at their strongest, the simple answer is yes, it is. But the important thing here that I like to stress is that our ability to make that shift and handle that problem or that challenge depends a great deal on the strength of the mental muscles. And when I talk about mental muscles, what I'm talking about is reprogramming those neural pathways from the reactive survival part of our brain, where we're trained as human beings to just react, to creating that space to make that shift to a different kind of brain activation over to the sage part of your brain. And the strength of those muscles, the amount of reprogramming that you've done in those neural pathways will kind of dictate the length of time it takes to make that shift, and the weight of, or the weightier problems that we face in life that we have to tackle. And so building up that mental muscle through reprogramming those neural pathways, which we do in our training, allows us to handle bigger problems, deeper problems, and make that shift more quickly. So it's really that simple. So one of the things that I've learned in all of this is that the true lasting positive change actually requires only 20% insight and 80% mental muscle. And this has been a big thing for me. I like all of you, I'm sure. I know that throughout life I've embraced the idea of constant improvement. I try to be very curious. I try to be a little bit better and learn new things all the time. And I've taken all kinds of training courses and done webinars and listened to podcasts and read books, as I'm sure you do. And all of those things have been amazing and hugely impactful in my life. But one of the things that has frustrated me is when I've had all these insights and I'm feeling really juiced at the time that I've learned something, I've noticed that as I reflect back on things, that some of the stuff that was really working really well for me and getting great results, I find that over a period of time, I may not be doing quite as much as I was before. And that's one of the things that I love about this program. I call it making it stick, because what I've learned is that insight is great, but without the mental muscle to create real sustainable change, we all have to rely on willpower. And willpower is a depleting resource. And so and that's why you see, that's why so many people have, resolutions that they don't stick with for very long. Our research shows that even with learning comprehension at the time of learning at as high as 85%, that within just 3 months, the retention for that learning drops to 37%. And after 5 months, retention near zero. And the reason is because that force, trying to force it just through willpower, it just doesn't work. Even no matter how strong your resolve, trust me on this, mental muscle and building those 3 core mental muscles is critical to getting the most out of all the things that you and I spend, learning in life. And if you want to really bring the best of what you have available to bear, both in your personal lives and at work, and how you perform on your boards, building this mental muscle is key. So I want to be mindful of the time. So just quickly, the positive intelligence training, the mental fitness training it's an in-app training. This is a snapshot for you to just take a quick look at what it might look like. It's a 6-week immersed course that involves sort of timed released content. That's a combination of video learning each week, together with daily focuses and coaches challenges throughout the day. Then we combine this in-app based program with pods that we put together, and we do that via Zoom, and they're facilitated, and it's kind of like a mutual accountability group where we share the things that we learn, and we help each other grow and stay focused on the program. We've been using this mental fitness training in hundreds, if not, I would actually say thousands of companies. And the results have been, nothing less than astounding. We've got all kinds of white papers and research on this, especially for people that want to really delve deeply into it. But as you can see, from a handful of these companies, these are obviously some well-known companies, but I love working with entrepreneurial organizations and companies that may not be household names, but we get fantastic results from all of this. Beyond just the foundational 6-week training, there's lots of modules and applications that you can do on your own, or you can do through coaching, that affect and help build on important things to you in your personal lives, as well as your professional lives. One of the neat things that I meant to mention even earlier is the impact of the positive intelligence training on emotional intelligence, because I know a lot of us are pretty familiar with emotional intelligence and its impact on leadership, its impact on performance. What I found amazing was through this factor analysis that Shahzad has done, just going through the foundational 6-week program of mental fitness, you're able to develop 17 out of the 18 emotional intelligence competencies, which I think is great, because I think emotional intelligence is important as it is. It's not so easy to necessarily get your head around, and oftentimes involves some somewhat complicated training and implementation. But positive intelligence literally gives you 17 out of the 18 disciplines for that. So I think that's really cool. So just, I guess in summary, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to get into how this kind of work can serve you both in your leadership endeavors and your endeavors as a board member, or making you a better board candidate. I've been working with Red and Shaparency on some things that we put together specifically for this community, and I'd love for you to reach out and connect with me on it. The email that you'll get will have the slides with some of these links, but you'll be able to go to a link on my website, take this saboteur assessment, get a little bit of input for yourself, customized just for you. And then if you happen to have, if you want to pursue the mental fitness training, we've put together some special pricing on it. And what we're going to do is take everybody from this community that's interested in doing the training, and we're going to curate small pods or teams of people, anywhere from just 3 to 4 people, which I'll facilitate myself. And we will use this community and small pods of people in this community to make that mental fitness journey, more enriching. What we've learned in our research is that people participating in these highly curated, facilitated pods, the retention in their ability to execute on this quickly goes up by literally 500%. And so that's something I'm really excited to do and do for this community.
Great. This was awesome, David. Thank you for this information. I really think it's important for us all to be aware that this exists and how we can all be better, both personally and professionally. So I see we have quite a few questions. So David, if you don't mind, let's jump into question for us. So if you want to get the two of us in the screen.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump right into it. So if you haven't added your question yet, then obviously now is the time to do so. And don't worry if we don't get to it, we will answer it after the webinar as well. So no worries. So I'm going to start in the order as they were received. The first question is, I've taken the saboteur assessment and I definitely relate to my top saboteurs, hyperachiever and pleaser. My gut tells me they are helping me. What do I do with that?
Yeah, so great question. And I have to say, hyperachiever is an interesting saboteur because, you know, a lot of the people in this audience, and I know in the US in particular, have this particular saboteur showing up. And in a lot of ways, the people with this hyperachiever, I know I have it as well. You know, we at first, when we first learned it, we kind of wear it as a badge of honor. We think like, oh, I'm a hyperachiever, you know, that's a good thing. The truth is, all of these saboteurs, including hyperachiever, are limiting us and bad for us. These saboteurs are equal opportunity destroyers. And so don't take, you know, first, don't get too comfortable with the idea that hyperachiever is something that you need to be successful. But your instinct is right. A lot of people associate the saboteurs that are most active inside of them with some of the strengths that have gotten them to where they are in life. And, you know, one of the things that that I like to point out here is that the saboteurs, you know, we're not talking about giving up the strengths that that you have. And so, for example, you know, hyperachievers will often be very driven and pragmatic, adaptable, goal-oriented, and very self-directed. And oftentimes hyperachievers have strengths that that allow them to be very capable of growing themselves and others to reach their potential. But they also are very inner directed and can be very inspiring and to themselves and to others. But the hyperachiever in us will take those strengths and actually overuse them to the point where you're actually holding yourself back. If your sage used those same strengths and characteristics that we have as a hyperachiever, I promise you would get much better results and you'd feel a lot better doing it. Some of the ways that a hyperachiever, characteristics of a hyperachiever are being very, and this isn't necessarily everybody that has the hyperachiever saboteur that's active in them, but being competitive and sort of image and status conscious is one of them. Good at covering up insecurities and kind of portraying this positive image, while not really feeling grounded in positivity, but just more of this put on that mask, you know, to hide things. We tend to take on workaholic tendencies. So we're very goal-oriented and can become almost workaholic in terms of how we approach things. And we can oftentimes be more into perfecting our image than being introspective. So we can, you know, we could be a little more self-promoting, tend to keep people at a distance. You know, we feel like we need to be the best at what we do. If I can't be outstanding, then I just won't bother. Emotions get in the way of our performance, so we kind of like to focus on thinking and action rather than on the emotions that we're experiencing. And these kinds of things, while we may have success, they won't be the successes that we could have had we not allowed the anxiety and the emotions that most of the hyperachievers feel. You know, if we allowed the sage to use those strengths and characteristics. And so, you know, that's how I, you know, we're not asking you to give up the things that make you who you are and have gotten you to where you are today. We're asking you to find a different way to use those same strengths.
Great. Thank you, David. Another question from Sarah here. As a CEO of a small nonprofit, what advice would you have for me about how to engage my board in this type of work and not just see it as soft, nice, or ancillary to our core mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. Boards have this reputation of being, focused on the numbers and oftentimes have the kinds of saboteurs like the controller or hyper rational that cause them to, quote unquote, not appreciate the soft skills. But I think, I think that it's important to point out that in today's world, that just doesn't work. And with today's workforces, with the cultures that we have to develop in our companies to attract the people that we need to attract, to create the kinds of strategies, enduring strategies that will make us stand out from our competition and give us our best shot at achieving some of the goals that we're trying to lay out there. We really do need to embrace these soft skills. And I think I would point to the very deep and long-standing research that's been done on emotional intelligence. I don't think that there's anybody that would argue with the idea that emotionally intelligent leaders make better leaders and make better board members. I like to say in our work at positive intelligence, with positive intelligence and embracing these skills that I wouldn't even call soft skills. I think they're foundational, fundamental skills for engaging the best part of ourselves, the creative part of ourselves, the ability to be able to connect and have people feel heard, the ability to persuade people without pounding them into submission, but persuade people by sharing ideas, recognizing that other members on the board or other members on the team have their own experiences and things to share, and knowing that everybody is at least 10% right, which is a kind of a foundational approach that I like to bring to board scenarios, so that people can feel comfortable and feel high trust in a way where they're willing to bring their own insights and experience to the table, but knowing that once decisions are made through a combination of all of this skill, that everybody's all in terms of moving forward. And I think that's what emotional intelligence does. That's what positive intelligence can bring you in a more concise, more I think more actionable way.
Mm. Oh, that's great. And Sarah also added her comment to that. Our culture tends to highly reward hyperachievement early on, and it's very hard to undo. Now, the next question here, let's see, we have a bunch of them. Would you please explain or expand on PQ reps, since they're key to shifting to SAGE?
Sure. So people, some people that have a mindfulness practice will really appreciate this, because I personally was one of those people that had difficulty, trying to meditate and create a meditation practice. And so I really appreciated, kind of learning more about PQ reps and how they worked. And so a mindfulness practice will help build that self-command muscle, but it doesn't necessarily build the other two muscles of saboteur, interceptor, and SAGE. And so that's the difference between meditation and PQ reps. So PQ reps, quite simply, and they work in as little as 10 seconds in terms of shifting your brain activation and your mindset to the right side. But it's, as an example, if taking two fingers and putting them together, we can all do this together if you'd like, and gently rubbing those two fingers together and focusing on just the sensation of those two fingers rubbing together, feeling the ridges of the fingertips, just gently focusing on it, letting go, and if your mind wanders, just like in breath work, bring it back to the sensation of touching those fingertips together. That would be an example of a PQ rep, and you could do that in as little as 10 seconds or for as long as you'd like. Obviously, breathing. I like to focus on a variety of different PQ reps because I like to have PQ reps that I can do in meetings. When I feel myself being hijacked by a saboteur, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I can't necessarily close my eyes and sit back in my chair and start breathing, but I can, touch my fingertips, use my sight to focus on something gently. It might be something on somebody's face that I'm communicating with, and I'll literally do PQ reps by focusing visually on something on somebody's face and try to notice something I haven't noticed before. So it's that gentle focus on a single sensation, and I underscore the word gentle because if you're trying to grind out PQ reps, if you're trying to force it or control it, or if your hyperachiever is trying to do a PQ rep and you're trying to do it perfect and just right, that isn't going to work. So it's a gentle focus, and knowing that we're imperfect, and knowing that your focus is going to shift. And when it does, just bringing it back to whatever it is that you're focusing on in that moment. Just doing that is what starts to rebuild the neural pathways in our minds. And by doing this just in the 6-week program, we literally have MRI imaging that shows a change in gray matter from an increase in gray matter to the right side of the brain versus the left side of the brain, where we tend to be kind of overusing and default using just because that's how we are as humans. That's just how we're built, unless we're doing it intentionally.
Interesting. We're going to have time for one more question. So to what extent have these principles been applied to nonprofit boards, and how do they measure outcomes in the efficacy of boards?
Well, first of all, I don't think it matters whether you're a nonprofit board or a for-profit board. The truth is, when you think about mental fitness starts as an individual journey. Right? It's a skill that you develop as an individual, and that you bring to a team environment like a board. And I've always been under the belief that better humans make better leaders, and better humans make better board members. And so, if you think back at one of the slides that I had. Because we have a lot of nonprofit organizations that have gone through this training. The evidence is overwhelming on the positive impact on the individuals that participate in the program. And so once that foundational training is done, that 6-week training, we then bring that to the team environment or the board environment. And there's all kinds of conflict resolution, innovation and creativity work, ways to bring mental fitness into a strategic planning environment. And so all of these applications that sit on top of the foundational 6-week framework, if you will, are all skills that you can either do on your own or can be facilitated by a coach that brings real meaningful impact to boards, whether they're for-profit or non-profit. I think it just improves a team of humans and how we perform both individually and collectively, and takes it to a whole different level. And by the way, not everybody in our lives is going to have mental fitness training. And so sometimes, as a board member or as a leader, I may have some training that others in the group haven't had. And that doesn't mean that it can't be effective in elevating the impact and the effectiveness of those boards. Because when you have this training, what you realize is what we call the PQ vortex. By staying in SAGE in situations where others might be getting hijacked by their saboteurs, by staying curious, by engaging in conversation and bringing an energy to the room and to the group that's SAGE-like, that's calm, clear-headed, and focused. Because we all as humans have what we call mirror neurons, just your energy and your training and your ability to engage with that group or a difficult person or any kind of situation, your energy will bring the performance, has the ability to bring the performance of the entire group up. Conversely, if you haven't focused on building that ability to intercept your saboteurs, and you find yourself or the group spiraling in that PQ channel, you can bring that saboteur hijacked energy to a group and bring that group down. So it's something you've got to be mindful of, but we do teach techniques to do that and influence people in groups that may not have had the training.
That's great. It's great, David. Thank you so much for this. It's been really an eye-opener for me, at least. And thank you everyone for great questions. If we did miss anyone, which it doesn't look like at this point, but of course you have access to David also, so you can ask more questions. So David, if we go to the final slide, and just going to give you some high level while you do that. Just a reminder again, I see that I do get the question again, if you are going to receive any follow-up on this, meaning deck or recording. Yes, you are. So just in a few days from now, you will receive a follow-up email from us, and it will have everything from this webinar, including the deck as well as the recording. So thank you again for joining us today. For further information about Shaparency, you know where to find us. We have a free 14-day Shaparency test drive right now. So shaparency.com to enroll in our global education and certification course hosted by our education partner. That is shaparency.com/board education. And for information on any of our upcoming events, visit shaparency.com/events. And we have Mike Lorelli coming up on May 11th. And he is the equity, get your butt on the equity board. And that is a reschedule from a couple of months ago. So I know a lot of you have already signed up for that one. So that is it for us today. Thank you, David, again. And thanks for joining us. And from me and the entire Shaparency team, have a great day and see you again soon. Bye now.